Hi, and welcome to today's Daily Chronicle. Today is Wednesday, November 12th, 2025. When the dust settles on the shutdown deal, Democrats will likely still have the edge. On its face, the likely beginning of the path to end the longest government shutdown in U.S. history is a major Democratic capitulation. Most congressional Democrats were against the deal that 8 of the senators who caucused with them crossed the aisle to vote and reopen the government. Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren called the move a terrible mistake. Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut said it was indefensible. Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont, an independent who caucuses with Democrats, declared it a policy and political disaster. And there were far harsher things about the deal on social media across the political spectrum. Of people left of center, not just the most progressive. Make no mistake, bridging the divide is going to be a significant challenge, but despite the intense blowback, the result in the end might not be all that bad for Democrats. In the next year's midterm elections, consider that affordability was the dominant issue in the off-year elections, where Democrats won by sweeping victories. If it's the most important issue next year, and it very likely will be, then Democrats will likely retain that advantage. What's more, if Republicans do vote against health care subsidy extensions in December, when a promised vote is to take place as part of this shutdown deal, then the GOP will fully own the increased healthcare costs that come with it. Democrats could also look at the adults who took the high road, recognizing the very real pain that a lot of people were beginning to feel when President Trump and his administration were beginning to turn the screws on the most vulnerable. So Democrats' biggest challenge heading into next year's midterms may be keeping progressives on their side. And fired up to vote, after what many of them are viewing as the latest show of weakness from a party, as they see it defined by that weakness. A Democratic vice. Democrats put themselves in a very difficult position from the very beginning of this fight. Any acute observer could have seen this coming and realized Democrats had nothing but bad options. Republicans dug in, figuring out at least enough Democrats couldn't handle the pain of millions losing Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP. And they were right. Most of us up here have voted repeatedly with a Democratic strategy. Virginia Senator Tim Kaine said, but after 40 days, it wasn't going to work. It's hard to win a fight when one side broadly cares about whether the government is open and working properly, and the other thinks the government is the problem. For Kaine and the 7 others who crossed over to join most Republicans in voting to end the shutdown, a commitment to hold a vote to extend health care subsidies combined with the protections of federal workers and SNAP benefits was enough. I don't think much of anything has been accomplished for the last 40 days, except a lot of chaos and a lot of upheaval, said Senator John Fetterman, a Democrat from Pennsylvania who voted repeatedly to end the shutdown. Senator Angus King, an independent from Maine who caucuses with the Democrats, is one of the 3 Democrats who has also been voting to end the shutdown, said bluntly, "It wasn't working." It's been 6 weeks. Republicans made it clear they weren't going to discuss the health care issue. Affordable Care Act tax credits until the shutdown was over. Waiting another week or another month wouldn't deliver a better outcome, New Hampshire Senator Jeanne Shaheen said. It would only mean more harm for families in New Hampshire and all over the country. Not everyone agrees with that reasoning, including swing state Senator Elissa Slotkin from Michigan. "I always said it's got to do something concrete on health care," she said of an agreement to reopen the government. And it's hard to see how that happened. Leadership problems. Democratic leaders also were ostensibly against the deal to reopen the government. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer voted no, though there are questions about whether Schumer allowed the senators who went ahead with the votes to do so. None of the senators who came out in favor of the shutdown deal are in imminent political jeopardy, given they're not facing re-election next year, and 2 of them are retiring. The overwhelming majority of Senate Democrats, led by Leader Schumer, are opposing this bill in the Senate. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries said Monday. He pointed out that Trump administration's actions when it comes to federal workers leaves most Democrats deeply skeptical of their intentions and on health care Republicans. He noted, not enacted in good faith, given that it's the party that tried to repeal the Affordable Care Act dozens of times. It doesn't change the core problem here, Jeffrey said in the shutdown deal. We need to decisively address the Republican healthcare crisis on behalf of working-class Americans, everyday Americans, and middle-class Americans. But Schumer already faced significant pushback when he abandoned the fight in March and voted to keep the government open. And given the party's movement toward ousting older leaders, the shutdown deal could spell trouble for the 74-year-old New Yorker as a party leader, even if he didn't vote for it. A changing party, from pragmatism to pugilism in the age of Trump. Schumer is certainly not representative of how the Democratic Party is changing, and the moderates who signed on to this deal also very much represent the old guard of the party. For as much that's made of how much the GOP has changed since Trump came to office, and it has been a lot, the Democrats have changed as well. Democrats have moved from pragmatism to pugilism. As an example of that, in April of 2017, just after Trump began his first term, NBC poll found that 6 in 10 Democrats favored making compromises with Trump to gain consensus on legislation. But that was completely flipped. As of March of this year, the last time there was a threat of a shutdown, 2/3 of Democrats said they think Democrats in Congress should instead stick to their positions, even if this means not getting things done in Washington. Not every progressive sees what happened as a total disaster for the left. Josh Marshall of Talking Points Memo, who is generally a pretty pragmatic progressive, sees a silver lining. He described the deal as embarrassing, but sees progress for the left. There's a difference between the deal itself and where the deal leaves Democrats and the broader anti-Trump opposition. This deal shows us that Democrats still don't have the caucus they need for this fight that will be going on at least through this decade. But the shutdown also accomplished a lot. And notwithstanding the WTF fumble at the 10-yard line, it's still a dramatically different caucus than we had in March. Democratic voters need to keep demanding more, keep up the pressure, and keep purging the Senate caucus of senators who are not up to the new reality. He also points out that if this deal goes through, there will be another funding deadline at the end of January. At that point, if Democrats don't extract health care extensions, or anything else of consequence, there will be another opportunity for leverage. Over the next year, there will also likely be primaries from the left, and expect the shutdown positioning to be litmus test for those primaries and for 2028. In the meantime, Democratic officials are banking on voters having a short-term memory that with time progressives will take a victory in the progress they've made in moving the party to a more fighting stance, and the issue landscape will propel them to winning next year. And winning cures a lot of divisions. Sentimental Value is a family drama that lets everyone off the hook too easily. Few filmmakers are as attuned as Joachim Trier in the inner lives of young people. In superb movies like Reprise, Oslo, August 31st, and The Worst Person in the World, he has probed the artistic dreams and frustrated desires of characters trying and often failing to figure out who they are. Trier's thoughtfulness is apparent even in his more middling films, like the Jesse Eisenberg drama, Louder Than Bombs, and the supernatural thriller, Thelma, both of which are keyed into the profound ways our families can mess us up. Complicated parent-child relationships are also at the heart of Sentimental Value, a new drama that many have hailed as Trier's best movie to date. But I've seen the film twice now, and although it's thoughtfully crafted and well acted, it strikes me as one of Trier's lesser efforts. The kind of lofty, self-consciously mature work that often gets more praise than its richer, livelier predecessors. Renate Reinsve, the radiant star of The Worst Person in the World, here plays Nora, an accomplished stage actor whose mother has recently died. As she grieves with her younger sister Agnes, wonderfully played by Inga Ibsdottir Lillias, Nora must deal with the return of their long-estranged father, Gustav, played by Stellan Stargard. Gustav, a film director of some note, abandoned the family when the girls were still young. Now, years later, he surprises Nora by presenting her with a new script and asking her to play the lead role. Nora turns him down, and so Gustav casts a Hollywood star, Rachel Kemp, played by Elle Fanning. Gustav's movie is being financed by Netflix, which allows Trier to introduce some delectable film industry satire. Rachel is game and loves Gustav's work, but she's clearly ill at ease with the material, partly because she isn't Norwegian, and partly because the character seems based on Gustav's mother, who tragically died when he was just a boy. In various scenes, Trier directs us to pay attention to his actors' shifting expressions and silences, all the pointed things they leave unsaid. When Nora has an unexplained attack of stage fright on opening night of her play, we wonder if it's rooted in a certain ambivalence about acting, a profession that connects her to her father, whether she likes it or not. Agnes and Gustav get along better, possibly because she starred in one of his films when she was a young girl, a brief bonding experience that her sister never had. Gustav, it seems, is the kind of father who can only parent through a camera lens. It's bittersweet that he treats Rachel with a paternal warmth that he seldom shows his own daughters. In the uniformly strong cast, I liked Fanning the best. Her character has a bracing and very American directness that cuts through the wry Noric reserve. Trier clearly respects the audience's intelligence, which earns our respect in return. But for every sensitive, perceptive moment in sentimental value, there's another that feels coy, even complacent. Trier and his regular co-writer, Eskil Vogt, seem strangely incurious about the character's art. I wanted to see more of Nora's acting, and to hear more of Gustav's script. In lieu of this, the movie floats a lot of whispery notions about how art and life converge, even when artists turn out to be lousy parents. It suggests art itself can be a vessel of reconciliation and healing. This idea is not exactly the stuff of revelation, and the movie basically rubber stamps it without developing or dramatizing it anew. A big part of the story involves the beloved family house where Nora and Agnes grew up, and which Gustav wants to use as the shooting location for his new film. We're meant to see that our homes become repositories of memory, filled with the ghosts of generations past. But there's something a little precious about these themes, just as there's something pat and predictable about the way the drama resolves, in building towards a redemptive ending. Sentimental value lets everyone off the hook too easily, especially Gustav. You can't blame Skarsgård, who plays the role with his typically irresistible, irascible charm, but it's not to feel that Trier, in indulging this character, is favorable the priorities of art over the tougher questions of life. Senators take first step toward reopening the government after historic shutdown. Senator Tim Kaine, a Democrat from Virginia, speaks during a press conference following a vote on Capitol Hill on Sunday. The Senate convened for a rare Sunday session in an attempt to end the government shutdown. A bipartisan group of Senate Democrats and Republicans reached a deal to reopen the government after the longest shutdown in U.S. history, voting on the first procedural step on the measure. The agreement would fund the government through January 30th and include full-year funding for a trio of appropriations bills, including full funding for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, through September 30th, 2026, or the end of the fiscal year. The vote late on Sunday was 60-40, with 7 Democrats and 1 independent joining with most of the Republicans to advance the measure. It marked the first but crucial step toward passing the measure in the Senate. Once the bill cleared the 60 votes needed to overcome a filibuster, any remaining Senate voters need just a simple majority. However, the legislation still needs to pass the House before the shutdown would end, enabling air traffic controllers and other federal workers to get paid and federal food benefits to resume, among other things. Senate Democrats had earlier voted against more than a dozen short-term spending measures in their fight to preserve health care subsidies. But as the pain of the shutdown continued to bite, some agreed to more modest changes in their latest framework. The continuing resolution to fund the government until the end of January will also include language to reverse any reductions in force of federal employees that happened during the shutdown, as well as protections against further such layoffs through the end of the fiscal year, and payback for all federal employees during the shutdown. I have long said that to earn my vote, we need to be on a path toward fixing Republicans' health care mess and to protect the federal workforce, Senator Tim Kaine, Democrat from Virginia, said in a statement. This deal guarantees a vote to extend Affordable Care Act premium tax credits, which Republicans weren't willing to do. The agreement to reopen the government is also expected to include a Senate vote on health care by the second week of December on a bill of Democrats' choosing. That informal deal is not part of the legislative text. Democrats are deeply divided by the compromise measure, which was opposed by Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. I think it's a terrible mistake, Senator Elizabeth Warren said of the deal. The American people want us to stand and fight for health care. Democratic divisions over legislation. Several top Democrats in the House also vowed to vote against the bill. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, Democrat from New York, panned the agreement in a statement. We will fight the GOP bill in the House of Representatives, where Mike Johnson will be compelled to end the 7-week Republican taxpayer-funded vacation. And Democrat Representative Greg Casar of Texas called the deal a betrayal and a capitulation because it doesn't reduce health care costs. The House has not held a vote since September 19th and previously passed a government funding measure without Democratic support. The Senate deal on government funding comes after Democrats cruised to a series of electoral victories in the last week, giving some in the party newfound political confidence to continue to fight for health care extensions. Many Democrats believed that keeping the government shut down gave them their only legislative leverage, with Republicans still in control of Congress and the White House. Moderate Democrats defended their votes, with some telling reporters that it's the best they could do. Kane, one of the Democrats who voted for the measure on Sunday, defended his support, saying Democrats would be able to put important health care legislation up for a vote. Lawmakers know their constituents expect them to vote for it, and if they don't, they could very well be replaced by the ballot box by someone who will, he said in his statement.